So, masculinity between to be and not to be, a topos in the cinema, toxic outside the cinema is a little bit of flashy bit of text in the Viennale program. So what we want to talk about is how feminism, how film feminism deals with masculinity, and how masculinity on screen has changed, should change, looks like, and so on. So we will depart from a definition of masculinity and gender that departs from a notion that film represents masculinity, but rather film and media construct gender and masculinity. So film kind of brings forward gender and masculinity and not kind of simply captures reality and presents it. I think this is a notion that we should keep remembering, because I think whenever one talks about gender and film, there is this trap to kind of lose the notion of what's really there, what we talk about. Now, we have two films at the table that are not very similar, to say the least. Still, I tried to make a path between PACIFICTION to MUTZENBACHER, and bear with me for just a second, and I will draw a line between the two films. So Albert Serra makes PACIFICTION with Benoît Magimel as the star of the film. He is an actor who appears in almost every scene of the film, and Magimel is an actor who is very well known to an Austrian audience because he starred almost 20 years ago in Michael Haneke's The Pianist, and there he played Walter Klemmer, the male vis-a-vis of Erika Kohut, we know as the piano teacher in Elfriede Jelinek's famous novel. And Erika Kohut is a female protagonist who has, if you want, internalized the pathological, patriarchal hatred of women. And Jelinek, one could say, is, after Sigmund Freud, Austria's most renowned analyst of sexuality, and she deals with sexuality and analyzes it via the use of language, via the use of pornographic language, and thus, so quickly it goes, we have arrived at Josephine Mutzenbacher, who can safely, I think, be called one of the sources of Austrian pornographic language, and Mutzenbacher, the novel, lies at the center of Ruth Beckermann's recent project, dealing with the effect this text still has on a contemporary male audience. And also maybe it doesn't hurt to know that she co-wrote the film together with Klaus Philipp, who also is somebody who knows a thing or two about Elfriede Jelinek. So I think there are a lot of connections between PACIFICTION and Mutzenbacher, albeit not prima vista. Now, after this hopefully not too serious introduction and connection between the two films, my first question goes to both of you, and feel free, whoever wants to take it. In my view, both films are portraits of men, of one man, but also of many men. So what's fun in making portraits of men? Albert.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's fun because I don't choose, there is at the beginning one choice that you say it will be a man or a woman, maybe the main character of the film, or there will be several characters. But then when this is decided that, okay, maybe, the character of the film should be done by a man because, I don't know, it's more, it's more coherent with how reality is, and to try to make it more credible. Then, okay, you can, in fiction, you can do whatever you want, and you can make a very crazy film and things that are not, that are not as in reality, or you can make a real pure fantasy. But I like it to keep it a little bit organic, at the beginning. So this organicity means that it has to be a little bit more coherent, or that, and in this case, we choose a man. Okay, we have a character, but then, and it's a male. But then, it's quite strange in my case, because, I don't know, I never, I choose other actors, and I never, first of all, I never talk with actors. Secondly, they do not read the script. I read the script to, just for the finance. Then I a little bit forget the script. There is not clear ideas. I have these people that it's human beings, what more or less I like, and can be men and women. And, I put them, in front of the camera. I do not do rehearsals. I never talk with them about their characters or what they represent. I just, with my intuition, I start to, look at them and sometimes, start to hate them a little bit because, it's part of, it's part of the, in order not to, I don't know, in order not to underline anything about them. I don't work in a collaborative way with anybody, and especially with actors. So for me, it's more that, and then, okay, I start thinking about them as real human beings. And for example, with Magimel, he didn't like to act with women. This I didn't know at the beginning, but I started to see that he was rejecting to act with women. He didn't like it, and he was trying to avoid it. He's trying to avoid interaction, just, I don't know why.
Okay, that's still the trauma of working with Isabelle Huppert, maybe, and the pianist?
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I don't ask. I don't talk to him. Okay. I just see that. And then I see if, what I don't judge. I simply see if this is interesting or not, what's going on here. From, visuals, from, that there is really something that can be, from cinematographic point of view, interesting. But I don't care what is the reason. I don't want to, it's not my problem. My problem are the images. So then, okay, he doesn't like, and then I said, well, if it looked like that it was a little bit flat, this idea that he was rejecting, and maybe the acting with this rejection became a little bit boring. So I said, let's put him more men, if he prefers men. I don't know. Just
all right.
Yes, because I mean, the script for me and all my system is based on an extreme elasticity. Because I don't have anything to say, I just work with these human beings that are in front of the camera. And with the idea, always in my films, that the camera will capture a lot of things that are not visible to my eyes. So for me, with the construction or of what the character will be or will represent, I mean, it's something that I don't know. I don't control myself that at all. I think that because of this lack of control of myself, the actor doesn't control it either, because actors usually need some kind of frame. Without this frame, they don't know what they are doing. And if, for example, if you see my methodology with the earpiece, I put the earpiece, for example, to Magimel, and he doesn't know the script. He doesn't know anything about his character. He doesn't know who is the people in front of him. He doesn't know which sentence he will say. So for me, it's about a game of, total destabilization of the actor, in the sense that he's totally out of control of what he's doing. He cannot even, try to, to deliver something coherent, or he doesn't know. I will do it on the edit myself. This is my problem. We can talk about that, how on the edit, yes, there is, deep analyze, and then it's more tricky and more, more malefic. But there on the shooting, I don't know. I don't. And when it's male or women, or for me, there is not difference at all in what they represent. I don't know. I don't care.
Okay, can I just pick you up on one thing you said about not liking several traits of this character. I mean, the character is a typical colonizer, one could say, or maybe not typical, but, you know, a colonizer. Yeah. But he displays a lot of registers, you know, language-wise, but also in situations. And as you said, so he only wanted to work with kind of male universe, or almost exclusively male universe. So a lot of different situations are there. What was it that you didn't like? What was the most thing you didn't like about this character?
But it's not about the character, because the character, there is always the three dimensions. For me, this is very important. No, the same body. This is the body that is in front of the camera. There is the person. There is the actor. That is the person with the vanity of being shot. So it means that it's a totally different person, and usually a worse person, because this vanity creates a lot of tension against the other actors especially, and somehow some of this transfers to the character. But for me, the character, I don't know, in my work, I mean, it's maybe 20% of these three elements, the person, the actor, and the character. Maybe it's 20 or 15% of my worries during the shooting. Just to keep it, as I said at the beginning, coherent. Just to make it that it's not completely... It's risky because working this way, as you said, it becomes that the character, it's too many things. And it's risky because it can arrive to be incoherent, even not a human being, because all human beings have some kind of coherence inside. And for the reason we can talk about we are able to talk about masculinity because there is some coherence that defines something. But in my case, it's really, really on the edge and on the limit, because the way I work, it doesn't allow to create a character. Yeah. The character will appear on the edit, and even on the edit we have a lot of problems, because everything is also very arbitrary. So we have a lot of problems to really define what this character means and how it's showing. But this is because of the methodology, and I don't know. It's quite strange. Yeah. And I never, it's like a universe. I mean, now, for example, I said, I will do a next film. I will do a film with more women, about women or more women. But I don't know exactly what it means, apart from putting, choosing women and putting in front of the camera.
Okay, but there are very strong women in your film. I think there's Shanna, there are other women, but maybe let's talk about the women later. Ruth Beckermann, Albert said something about that the characters appear in the edit. So that's maybe also something that's very true to your film, to the documentary method, when, of course, you don't have characters to start off, but you have people that you ask to appear in front of the camera. But then, of course, how you treat them with the camera and with the edit, you make characters out of the people. So, and you do so in a very loving way also. I mean, there are also very beautiful portraits, visually beautiful portraits of a lot of the protagonists, but how is it with you and the portrayal of men? How do you, what's the fun in there for you?
No fun. No fun in men. No, thank you, Albert, because almost everything you said, I could have said myself. And we never talked. We just said hello yesterday evening, very briefly. So as you said, I myself write a treatment or expose only to get money. Actually, I always say to young filmmakers, the treatment or the expose or the script is just a piece of paper to seduce some people who have no idea about film. That's one thing. The second thing is that I just want to be surprised what happens while shooting. And I don't, of course, you have so many ideas in your head, you have you have to have a location, you have to find people. So it's not true that I just go out in the street and shoot. Sometimes yes, but not for this film we talk about, MUTZENBACHER. But in this project, we, Klaus and me and my wonderful assistant Rebecca, we did research for almost a year, and we had so many ideas and so many things happened, and all of a sudden I had the feeling that no, nothing of all that, we just do a casting call and we do something like a field experiment. I didn't want to find people, but I want people to find me or to find the film. So we put out an ad looking for men for a film about this porn book, The Memories of Josephine Mutzenbacher, Memories of a Viennese Whore. And 150 men applied. And then we chose half of that number, and we chose them mainly by different age groups, because I wanted from very young to very old. So that was it. And then I didn't meet them before. We decided to make the film in this former, how do you say, sarg? Coffin, no? Coffin, sarg, Sargfabrik, which was transformed to a cultural center, but now it's again destroyed and will be a shopping mall, like all the locations I shoot in. Remember the dreamed ones? I was shooting in the wonderful radio house, and right after that, now actually they destroyed. The same happened to the place where I shot MUTZENBACHER, but we were the last people who could use it, so it was empty and we could just be free to move around. And it was very useful because there's also a big area where the men who came for the casting could wait and have a drink and have food and whatever, because I didn't want to meet them before. I just wanted to meet them when they came into the location where we had set up this casting atmosphere. And when I only met them there, I just told my assistant, bring in one man, bring in two men, or three, or four. 4 was the maximum to sit on this couch. So that was the methodology, as you call it. I would say that was the concept for this film. But in general, I liked, when I talk to people, I like to have a spontaneous encounter. I never prepare for an interview or a talk or whatever. I mean, I prepare, of course. As I said, we prepared for a whole year, but in a different way. Reading philosophy, reading literature, whatever. But when I meet someone, I want to be just spontaneous and very concentrated on this person, because I want to make a kind of short portrait of this person, and that's quite tiring because we're shooting many men on one day, and you said lovingly. I don't think that my gaze on them was lovingly, but it was non-judgmental. And I think people feel if you judge them or not, if you're just open. I just wanted to be open and gave them a text, a short text out of this porn book, which served like a trigger, and then they just talked, and they must have felt that I'm not using them, that I'm not trying to make fun of them or whatever, and so it was very easy, actually.
I think this openness, or your openness, is absolutely visible, or you can feel it, because also, I mean, there's one man who in particular says that he thinks that in your casting idea you had this idea to cast, on the one hand, people who kind of really like Mutzenbacher, and on the one hand, men who really admire you as a filmmaker, and obviously he was counting himself to the latter group. And it was very nice, I think, or nice, stupid word, but very telling how it almost became a therapeutic setting. that he had projected a lot of what he expected from this shoot onto you, and he said that he put a lot of trust in you. And so also how you talked about the process now, trust plays a very big role in how you develop the concept and how you kind of call for the participants.
Well, as I said, I didn't call them, they came. The call was very neutral. It was just an ad in a paper. And I think, of course, trust is important, but this you cannot plan. That's a part of your personality. And also you mentioned my film East of War many, many years ago with the former soldiers of the German army. I mean, none of them had asked me why I make this film, for whom I make this film. They just told me sometimes very horrible stories of what they had experienced on the Eastern Front. So, and in general in my life, people like to tell me their stories, even if I don't want to hear them. Don't tell me your story. So it's something you cannot teach. You cannot. Everybody has his own life and experiences, and I think film is very revealing. It reveals the people in front of the camera, what they think, what they are, but also the gaze of the person behind the camera, which means the director and the camera person who was sitting with me there, and who is a wonderful cameraman, Johannes Hammel. And the whole atmosphere was very détendu, relaxed, yeah. And so it happened. It just happened. I was surprised because many of my girlfriends say men don't talk about themselves. Men don't talk about sexuality. Men are not honest. Men just tell you stories and so on. And I found out, and that was part of the game to find out, that that's not true. At least the men who came have been quite honest, I think. But of course, it's also a game. I mean, this was a casting. So they sit on a kind of casting couch. I am the director, which is a reversal of roles, of course, because many times there are young women sitting on the casting couch and they want to impress a male director. So this man had to impress me. So it was a kind of game, yeah, of course. I mean, that was part of the concept of the idea to make this film.
Yeah, I mean, this talkative men, they are very present in both films. So this cliche of the kind of, silent, enigmatic, but acting man that we get a lot in film history, might not be so true. I mean, definitely not in your film when men even talk about their sexuality and sexualities, but also, Albert, in your film, when we are confronted with a character who talks unstoppably in every way imaginable, and whose really power or whose really exertion of power is in the way he can talk. And there is really no situation that he can't handle linguistically. So how is this kind of almost superpower, linguistic superpower? How did you conceive of that? I mean,
well, I saw that he was very gifted to do that.
The actor, you mean?
Yeah, the actor, because usually people, actors in general, they do not have a lot of imagination, verbal imagination. That they are used to repeat lines. So, I don't know, they are not very creative at this level. But this one, by chance, I don't know why, is a quite folkish guy. So, it's an authentic person, and I don't know, he's living random situations in life, and he's a little bit rock and roll. He's not scared of anything. So, and he didn't care about anything, when somebody goes to a film and hasn't read the script and doesn't care about it, it's a totally different attitude than somebody that knows the script, that wants to participate because knows the script. It's totally different. Okay. Why he wants to be there? If he doesn't know about what's going on? What is about the film? I never give the script to anybody, and nobody never asked me. And I did Liberté, that it's a quite outrageous film with a lot of sexual scenes, explicit, very explicit, as outrageous as you can find.
Trees.
Yes,
it's behind the trees. It's not so explicit.
Well, but there is, first close-ups with the, with the sex organs, and dicks, and So, I mean, and what I don't know. For example, I saw the film that I really love, Reste Vertical. That it's very interesting at this level of changing roles on sexuality, etc. No? But I saw, for example, that at the end on the credits they said doubles of sex, So it means, I understood, unless it's fake, and just because people doesn't think that some sexual organs are not from the actors, but if it's true, what is probable, you mean that they were a double who made, the explicit or the close-ups of the sex. Is what I deduced. For example, in my film, nobody read the script. I never asked anybody except one of my friends that was very close, and I said, "They will pee on you. Do you mind?" But it was a friend, So apart from this, that I knew that he would say no. It's like if I am in a film, they ask me, I would not suicide. But if I am in an artistic adventure, they say, "Will you pee on you?" Yes, but they will not kill me. Just to, pee over you, it's not it's not a big deal. So apart from that guy, no, I never asked anybody to do anything. It happened like this. I don't know. And there was no doubles, and I said, I don't know. And they were there, and, and I don't know. People, and during, for example, the shooting was 24 days, and during the first 12 days, nobody did any kind of sexual act, or nudity was almost absent. Then suddenly, one person started, and everybody, started more, to be more on the radical side, explicit side. But I never talked to anybody, really. I never asked to any of the actors to do something concrete. This is quite strange. People don't understand. You understand what I mean. It's very, things go without talking. And then nobody cares about the meanings. Sorry, because this is the most important part. Nobody knows what is the meaning of what they are doing. They don't know the script. They don't know They don't know what the film will show, and they don't care. And if the film will give a good image, and this is very dangerous because the vulnerability of naked people, it's bigger than when you are dressed, of course. And in general, I never found anybody in my life that naked was less vulnerable than dressed. So in general, there is some, I don't know, but these people there, I don't know. I don't know why they do it. It's, for me, the only reason is that they want to be part of an artistic project. And you said there is trust, and it's true, there is some kind of trust, but they trust on the final result. And I don't know, they want to be part in an artistic wall.
Yeah, but they have to trust you because they have to sign or they have to give their permission that you use the material.
Yes, but...
So they don't know what will be the editing and what will come out of it.
Yes, but it's a film. They don't care, really. It's a film. What can be about outcome for them?
I have no idea. It's not my problem. I just thought that they have to trust you as they had to trust me because I had this 100 men doing these chorus, and shout all these things. So they had to trust me because they didn't know what I will do.
How can you betray them? What can you do to betray them?
I have no idea. I don't know. I don't want to betray them.
But
so I didn't think what I could do to betray them.
I think for me it's less impossible because everything goes inside in an inner logic. Also the edit. You see the great moments, the intense moments, and sometimes can be dark images. Sometimes can be bright images with positive feelings, and sometimes it's dark with bad feelings. But as it's aesthetically intense and mysterious and fascinating, this is the criterion of choice. It's not that it's dark or not dark, or you are giving a good image of that. There is no possible betray because it's on the honor of the, of the high quality of the images, and if the actors are, the essential part of this high quality of the images, that is, you are honoring them somehow always. I don't see the point of how can you betray
there's a big difference.
Can I say something?
There's a big difference between documentary and fiction, because you work with actors or people who know that it's a fiction film.
It's a fiction film.
I think
yes,
that's maybe a difference.
Yeah, this I agree.
I think there's two ways such a betrayal could happen, and I think it's been talked about a lot, especially when we talk about
with the Me Too and all these things,
violence or masculinity also. So there's the one thing, that's the situation on set. So there can be situations that are, uncomfortable. That's why a lot of film productions employ intimacy coaches to kind of coach the whole production, not only for the sex scenes, but also ways to talk about genitalia or about body parts, and it's amazing that not all people and actors are used to that. And the second way of betraying actors or people in films is that you edit in such a way that people don't feel represented anymore afterwards. So that's also, I think, true for documentaries. So I think that's the two dimensions of betrayal that can happen, right? And that's a lot where a lot of discussion is going on now also at the moment. And maybe asking also both of you about this kind of violence or sexualized violence, which is a topic in both films. In your film, Albert, it's very subdued in a way, because the violence that's exerted is a colonial violence. So we have a very, a kind of white linen suit colonizer who, suppresses natives, and but we never see, we never see gun shootings, or there's no blood, but the violence is very kind of hidden.
I don't know if the word is violence, but the tension, because maybe it doesn't go on that side. But yes, I like this idea of an atmosphere that had contained this tension, because, I don't know, it was fascinating somehow from visual point of view. If not, it will be more flat, So I like, it's, you are there, and you have to fill the images with something, but you don't know what, in fact. You're just checking. I check on the direction and the opposite direction. It really, I have 540 hours, 3 cameras. It means like almost 200 hours of rushes on sound.
Horrible.
Yeah, 200 hours, 180 on sound, or 190 on sound. So, and I try something and the opposite. I always try completely contradictory things. And then in the edit, what I choose, it's pure intuition. Because if I explain my methodology on the edit, people will not believe. I check the scenes. The scenes are very long. As I said, we go in one direction. I never repeat the same scene. It's all variations of strange things. Then I go to the edit alone. We are 3 editors, but at the beginning alone. And I start choosing the things I like, but very fast, based on intuition. And then I like the light. I like here his face. I like very strange and very different things. And then I oblige the editors to edit only using what I choose. So it means that any kind of control of the meanings of course there will be a final film and there will be some representation and some ideology behind. But at least until that moment of the previous moment, editing inside the scenes, previous moment of editing the structure of the film, that goes a little bit later, there is no control at all.
Why do you have 3 editors?
To go faster.
Okay.
Because we are in the same building or in the same room, it depends, with one Unity, one computer each. Yeah. And we divide the scenes based on what I wrote that we had to use. So everyone is editing one scene. If not, it already took 8 months to edit. If I was alone, it will take, 3 times. It's impossible.
Ruth, with your film, the violence is of a completely different form. It's and it's also a lot of the men who read the passages thematize it as child pornography that they read, and they have to kind of deal with it if they get turned on by it or not, or if they have fantasies, and they have also hypotheses about it. One says it's in all of us, but we don't act on it, but it's the spark is there. But but also here it's very it's not shown, obviously, but it's told, it's narrated, and it's there in a conceptual form. People talk about it. Is this something that you expected from the start of the project, or that also surprised you, that the readers of Mutzenbacher would kind of problematize it for themselves? I mean, I was pretty surprised, actually, that quite a lot of the men reading the passages came up with this idea of, wow, yeah, I mean, this is about children, and I'm not sure, and, kind of talking about the ambivalences.
Well, I think what's special about the film is that not only the man who read the text had these ambivalences, but every spectator has it. I spoke to many people who said the film really gets to you very directly, and someone's put it that way, I'm like getting into it, even being turned on by the texts, and have the feeling I have to leave immediately. I don't want to hear that. Yeah? So it doesn't leave you alone. No. So of course this happened to the men, and more or less I thought that at least one of them would say, I don't want to read this text. All of them read the text. But there was one, and he's in the film, who reads the text and throws it away with disgust. Yeah? But we must not forget that this text was published in 1906, and today we are in the age of internet, and we live in an age of images. And this is a book without an image. These are almost 200 pages of text, and it's a fiction. So when you read a book or even listen to sounds and words, it's very different than seeing images. Images are concrete, and young people today, from very young age on, they go to the internet and they see the most horrible images with violence, sex, including a lot of violence. There is no violence in that sense in this book, but image, and they, as one young man in the film puts it, you see images of sex, sexual acts, and you think that's how it has to be. Huh? If you read a text, you still don't know exactly how it has to be. So there is this big difference, and I think that was very important for the project. That's why I wanted to bring this book back by making a film, because it's a great porn book, and porn can be fun, and porn can be turning on, and so on and so on. And why be ashamed of porn?
This is
absolutely no, but I mean, one protagonist says it in a way that he says, well, there is this violence of this book that pretends to be an autobiography of a woman, and it makes us believe that women like it the way they are treated, how it's described in this book, but yet it's a complete male fantasy, and this setup of the book kind of pretending to be an autobiography of a woman kind of gives men the excuse to get turned on by it.
Sure, I'm sure that's true. He put it very well. Of course, this was in my opinion, we don't know who wrote the book, but I'm quite sure that this must have been a man. And because, I mean, that's wishful thinking that every woman, every girl, every woman wants all the time and comes every 2 minutes. I think that must be a man's fantasy about women. And and I always said this is fiction. This is not the truth. Some men thought, who didn't read the book, thought this is really a true story. And I had to remind them that this is fiction. But this man in the film puts it very well when he said maybe this book should serve as an excuse for men for all the bad things they do and think. Of course, this maybe I'm not the author of this book, and we don't know who wrote it, so maybe this was one of the purposes of this book.
It's very, I had an experience, similar experience in the shooting of this last film with text, verbal, crude text. Because I wrote with me and another person that was helping me, we wrote a very crude, description of sex, and it was supposed to be said from one of the protagonists of the film. Then it's not in the shooting, it's not in the final edit, to Magimel, somebody that had a relation in the past with him and the fiction. So I said, let's write something very, very crude, explicit on the words, and almost, that you write it and it's almost, for you yourself, you say, this sounds really, really bad. It's almost, it's violent, because it's the words. And he was simply supposed to remind him some, sexual encounter or whatever of the past in a good way. I mean, but using an extremely explicit and, So we did the scene, and the actress that was like 30 years old, 29 or 30. I mean,
a man?
A woman.
Oh.
This was maybe maybe the idea of using. This is another story. Maybe the idea, but it depends, because you said that your book was written by a woman.
By men.
By men. Okay, didn't know. Okay.
But it pretends to be written by a woman.
Yeah.
It's like
maybe,
a female memoir.
Yeah, okay. So maybe this is the same case, because we wrote it, very explicit to make this a scene that, I don't know, in any sense, just to make random things as I do the opposite or whatever. And, she was very difficult for her to say the words.
Oh, really?
Yes. I was surprised because then you said, well, it's 30 years old and it's a fiction. This is what you say. Why cannot pretend that, that it's in a fiction? I mean, who cares? I mean, just say the words and explain this and use these words, and who cares? I mean, there is no problem. But it's true that even when you write it, there are some words that, put you a little bit tense. Imagine the person, and maybe then I realized that maybe the fact of, I don't know, maybe it's a prejudice or it's an hypothesis that we thought at that moment, that the fact of using explicit words was already a male fantasy. Maybe, I don't know, because maybe it looked like that the person, even if it was representing a female character and everything, but he was more tense. Obviously, it's more tense to be an actor than to write it. We do it in front of the camera and in front of other actors, it has to be credible. Of course, it was fun at the same time, because some moments were ridiculous, because you say such a explicit thing and it's difficult to make it work, because it's so explicit. But at the same time, there was real tension, because some words are, the description of some...
Now I want to know which words, but you will tell me later.
Yeah. No, you can imagine, but but yeah, I was surprised, but this can happen. Just to, what you said, that words sometimes are more outrageous and more difficult to accept than proper images of real, sexual, not violence, because it was not linked to, but sexual pleasure, for example. Let's put it this way, in this case.
All right, we are also opening the floor for questions and comments, and there is already one in the last row. There's also a mic. Please, could you wait for the mic so we hear it?
Danke. Yeah, thank you so far. I have a question because in the introduction, Andrea Braidt reminded us that masculinity in film and media is something that is being constructed. And as far as I've been listening to both of you now, I'm thinking if everybody or if we were just surrounded by films made by you, I wonder what masculinity would be constructed, because you're very open. You just, as you said, for example, you're open. You don't know what's happening. You're just inviting people or opening just letting things happen. So I wonder, you are coming from a culture that has constructed masculinity. You've seen it in cinema. And for example, in your work, Albert Serra, there are very often male protagonists that are crumbling in their power positions, or with Ruth Beckermann, there is a reason why you cast men to read the passages and not women. So I'm wondering, in your work, are you kind of like, maybe when editing only, thinking of deconstructing images of masculinity somehow, or are you interested in that? Are you looking for that maybe? Because I'm kind of like missing the link or missing the connection. I think you must have, because I cannot imagine otherwise, somewhere in your subconscious maybe, there must be a constructed masculinity you're dealing with when you're making films. You
mean a construction of masculinity or construction of the film?
No, construction of masculinity.
Inside the film.
But that depends on one's own experiences, I think, and every woman has different experiences with men.
No,
you have a father, you have experiences, so...
Masculinity as you've experienced through cinema, like the constructed masculinity you've experienced through cinema, through films. And you're making films now. Is there no, like, you don't have... Like, because you sound like you're going about like you never saw a constructed, you never heard of that concept, which would be fun, but I'm just wondering if it's possible.
It's possible because I think that you found the bad examples for, and the way I understand that she's working with documentary, and the approach to documentary is already very open, and you are just there like almost listening or waiting or thinking what's going on. And my way of working also, it's very open. And you never, I understand that most of the filmmaking nowadays in film industry, it works totally different, and that it must be a lot of control of, building or constructing masculinity or whatever, or I don't know, or colonialism or whatever is the subject. Who cares? But because they write in a script and the director, it's following the script and the actor is saying the script. From the script at the beginning, there is a vision of that masculinity. But in my perspective or the way I work, it doesn't happen. I don't know. Even I am dubious that at the end of the edit, or that there are certain moments in the process of the edit that, because I never judge it this way. I like one image because I like it. I don't know exactly why, intuition, or I like one scene, but I don't...
but wouldn't you say it's a very conscious decision to choose two very classic patriarchal institutions of power, like the marine and the military on the one hand, and the political power on the other hand? That's the two kind of, how shall I say, the kind of most erect institutions of male, violence and power, confirming the colonization system.
Yes, but I don't know. Then there is humor inside, and everything. You're never safe. You as an editor, we spend a lot of time analyzing the images, you know, but we are focused on the idea that what are the strengths or the qualities from, you know, intensity or artistic point of view. We never analyze what's going on at those levels, you know. It's simply that this conversation, it doesn't get in. I don't know why, but...
Yeah. So what you see now is the typical natural enemy between film scholar and filmmakers. This is, I think, very normal, but Ruth, you also wanted to go to this question.
Yeah, I must say I don't think in terms of masculinity and femininity, not in film and not in my life. I think of human beings, yeah? I'm not interested in generalizing women or men, not at all. And I'm very sad that this is done a lot today. But that's not a category that is interesting for me. I mean, there are so many different men and so many different women, and so what, yeah? What does it mean? Physically, if you want, of course, there are men you're attracted by and some you're not, but this is also depending on a woman and different experiences in your life.
Did you ever consider letting also women read the passages in the film?
In the film, no, not at all. I mean, there are two women in the film. There is Josephine and there's me.
I know.
I'm in the hors champ, so this is the most important spot in a film, the one you don't see. That's me, and Josephine, the main protagonist of the book. So there are women.
Okay, but wouldn't you? I mean, also again, both of you see your films as also criticisms of a certain masculinity. I mean, I do think there is a film feminism. I mean, especially in your work, Ruth Beckermann, your answer just now, one would almost have to ask you, well, do you even consider yourself as a feminist?
Yeah, someone asked me on Saturday, and if this is a feminist film. I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, I've of course, everybody's a feminist today. I mean, so what? What does it mean?
What does it mean?
No, don't. Let's. We don't want to start this discussion now, but it means for every generation probably something different.
What would it mean for you, Albert Serra?
Oh, because it's different when you talk about reality and when you talk about fiction. You know, we can talk, you know, for the society from three different points of view. First of all, it's like talking about, you know, social reality and what are the problems or, you know, the structures or whatever, if it's still unfair or whatever. This was one point. Well, another point is when it touches intimacy. You know, that it's another point very different, and then, you know, it linked with desire, the body, but it's totally different from, you know, the social point of view. And then there is another point that it's inside fiction. That is, you know, linked with the methodology of any filmmaker, and, you know, sometimes the meanings can appear in a more controlled way or not, or the portrait of something can appear, you know, because you want to really do it this way or not. But, you know, it's I don't think you can mix the three things and make a statement, and, you know, just because there is inside fiction a portrait of this, and then make some deductions about what it was in reality or what was the consequence, or that this guy, for example, in intimacy, you know, just because in fiction there is this, I don't see the link very clearly, because these three dimensions of the same problem are not connected from, or I don't know, from my experience in daily life, are rarely connected. Because I am there, for example, as a filmmaker, or as I said, it's almost, you know, the actors are there, but I don't know, they are serving something. They are not themselves. It's like, I don't know, if I am helping somebody to do something, I am helping. I am not, you know, I am not the owner of my will at that moment. I am just there serving somebody or helping somebody to achieve something. And I don't know. It's you know, this is the strange way of how fiction works, because people think that cinema just because you have the real people in front of the camera, that it's a real body. It's not a written language, or it's not painting, or you have real people. People think that there is a communication, but in fact, the formal elements you work with are exactly, you keep the same distance almost than in literature, at least in my case. I mean, you don't have any kind of personal involvement with what you do. And if you have it, it's because just on manipulation, are cheap tricks. I mean, you pretend to have it, but in fact you don't have it. Because you are so focused on the formal connections of, even if it's using real people and happening real actions, but you are focusing on other things. It's not connected with you really. It's totally another. I don't know. I understand it's difficult to, and it doesn't mean that at the end the portrait of what you have in the final film, it has not a lot of consequences and a lot of ideology inside. But I don't know. This is more the work of academics, or I don't know, analyzing, or it's another. Unless you do it on provocation. If you work on provocation, could be the only element that is a little bit more dubious, because this is a very interesting thing, provocation, because you do provocation consciously, then you put something because you want to provoke unconsciously. And I am not, usually you don't use provocation because it's already very tendentious and it's a little bit cheap. All filmmakers will try to avoid it because it will be a cheap trick, and then it will not work. You have to find the same way without abusing of yourself, using provocation. But maybe there are some cases, because all the subversive aspects of reality, I mean, for me always, or not only for me, but I think that sometimes to really achieve something subversive, and this can be destroying, for example, the typical image of masculinity, sometimes the door that goes through it needs provocation. Sometimes. Because if not, and you see a lot of writers, or outrageous writers, that it looks like that provocation was there, and it was the door to go through subversive content. But in general, it's the only moment where you can meet and you can really control this, and you are very, at least myself, and I guess you, because you are really cautious, because if you use provocation, it's very easy to fall on the cheap, on the cheap tricks. But it's the only moment where you can really, at least myself, I am really conscious that, okay, I am doing something that will have this effect. Right. But usually, if it's not in the frame of provocation, I never think which effect will have what I am doing. So I don't know. And it's part of the mystery.
I think provocation is a very interesting thing, something interesting to think about, because many times, your film is made at a certain moment. So sometimes your film is provocative because it touches something in society at this certain time that is against or different, So I never think, anyway, I don't think much of the public when I make a film. Only when the film is finished, I want people to see it and pay tickets. But when I make the film, I just want to make what I want to do, But I had the experience that I made films that have been provocative, even if I didn't put anything provocative in them, because they broke a taboo in society, But this is comes from outside, And I made the contrary experience when I made, maybe some of you have seen this installation, The Missing Image, near the Albertina at the Hrdlička monument. And I thought this would be very provocative, and it was not. People really thought it was time to see this. And a friend of mine said, well, you haven't become mainstream, but the world, the Austria or Vienna has come your way, Because I said, okay, am I now mainstream? Nobody thinks that this is alerting or so. So it can happen in both directions,
But sometimes, something, for example, I did a documenta film, and it was about 3 figures. Hitler, Fassbinder, and Goethe. No, it was 100-hour film. You know, it was like performance, okay, whatever. And with Hitler, it was very interesting because I was facing, this thing that is, in general, why don't we do a documentary when we all agree that it's bad people, no? For example, Hitler. We all agree, most of the people, maybe not everybody in the world, but most of the people will all agree that he's a bad person or, forms, it's part of evil. So why don't we try to make a film about the good things of this evil, if it has? Or the opposite. We all know that somebody, I don't know, Teresa de Calcutta or whoever, I don't know, that we all agree that it's, was a nice and a very good person. Why don't you make a documentary about the bad things of this person? No? So for me as an exercise, I always think about this. Because if you make, for example, a film, a documentary about Hitler, saying how bad things he did, that we all know, more or less, or how evil he was, then what's the point? I mean, and you will say, saying the good things of Hitler will be like a provocation. But in which sense? Or in which sense, in which sense this is a provocation? Why this, it's what I was facing this because my film was only based on the text, on real text, so he said, why it's a provocation?
And
this, I don't know. It's something that it comes to my mind very often when I have to deal. And in fiction, you don't find this. This problematic. It's very, very little. It has the same things. It's exactly the same. I think that the problematic is the same, but it's not so visible. And you always have to face this idea because that I always, for the reason I try to always shoot two, something and the opposite. And then, I try to see what the image is, and I leave chance to play a role in that. Because if I shoot something and I shoot the opposite, what I always do or very often, then I choose the one that it's better. But it's better not because ideologically it's better, but it's better because by chance, doing that actor at that moment was doing it better. And the mise en scène and everything, it happened that this was better than the opposite. And this goes to the film, and not the opposite. But I shoot both. It's a very strange, way of working. Of course, then you need a coherence at the end of the film, and it has to be, you have to portray something, and it's risky for me sometimes of being too conceptual or too abstract or even being totally, nonsense, being really inside the absurdity where there is no coherent meaning, really, there is not an homogeneity of coherent meanings inside a film. But okay, this is avant-garde art too, and maybe it's saying something in a different way. It's not me who will judge it, it's not me who analyzes it, but this is it's a very interesting
sorry to
point.
interrupt, but we have one last question, and I think then... Sorry, we have another question here in the end, please.
No, I have no question. I just want to say I have seen this film MUTZENBACHER, and it was very interesting for me to see these persons. They haven't to play a role; they have to play themselves. So it was a special kind of film, of course, and for me, it was like you were like a painter. I have heard the paintings, for example, the paintings for the kings. They wanted to represent themselves, but a very good painter paint the king himself how it really was, and not as a represent.
Goya.
Goya, yeah. And and for me it was just the same. They wanted to play a role, but the situation wasn't to play a role. They come to participate at this film, but they did. I think first they didn't realize that they haven't played a role. They have to play, to be authentic. It was, for me, it was...
Well, now we go into the question, what is authentic? We don't have time for that.
Okay.
But I think the whole thing is... excuse me.
Yeah, it was this, to read this part of this book. I haven't read it, but they read it, and this was the incentive to that they present themselves.
Okay.
And so it was really, for me, it was really interesting to see what the men really think about.
The concept of authentic is very interesting.
Okay.
It's great.
Thank you for this
really
Thanks. Comment. Back to the portrait. I think we are kind of at the end of time. So thank you very much for participating in this talk about two films that are maybe not so closely linked to each other, but still that have topics that I think are comparable, even if they are dealt with in a very different way. So thank you very much, Albert Serra and Ruth Beckermann.
Thank you.